Hi, I'm Karima Lacroix. I'm the author of Les Pieds d'Isadora, and this is the True North Country Comic Podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics Podcast, dedicated to celebrate Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. On this episode, I chat with Karima Lacroix about her award-winning graphic novel, Les Pieds d'Isadora. Based in Montreal, Quebec, Karima Lacroix is an illustrator and graphic novel author. Her work explores illustration as a tool for introspective and emotional storytelling. Karima studied fine arts at Concordia University in Montreal and Paul-Valéry University in Montpellier, with studies and practice allowing her to bring together strong draftsmanship and a keen sense of narrative. Today, she collaborates with video production, advertising, and immersive digital studios, creating storyboards, animatics, and visual concepts for films, shows, commercials, and interactive experiences. Through her illustrations and graphic narratives, she addresses themes of nostalgia, identity, and transformation. In 2025, she self-published her first graphic novel in French, Les Pieds d'Isadora, which was one of the 2026 Bédélys Award for Best Self-Published Francophone Comic Book in Quebec. Her book has also been published in English as Isadora's Feet. The story of Isadora's Feet goes like this. Lale has always known she was destined to dance, but coming from a strict immigrant family, her journey to become a ballerina has been anything but graceful. Juggling work and studying, she refuses to let anything or anyone hold her back. Yet her ballet teacher believes she might not have what it takes to join the National Ballet Company. Enter Al, a mysterious figure with an offer that might help her reach her goal. To make ends meet, Lale dives into the world of go-go dancing and long nights in the gritty nightlife scene. Soon her past begins to unravel, forcing her to confront the sacrifices she's made and questions what she's really dancing toward. So, without further ado, here's my chat with Karima Lacroix about her award-winning graphic novel, Les Pieds d'Isadora. So, Karima Lacroix, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Hello, John. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate your time. We met up not too long ago, but before I get going with all the questions, I would like to ask you, what was the first comic book that you read?
So the first comic book that I read was when I was a kid. We just moved to Canada. I was actually born in Algeria, and I remember specifically that comic. I remember that it was Asterix and Obelix.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Belgian French comic book. And that was my way of learning French, basically, because, we just arrived as immigrants. And I just remember reading it and I had a blast. I loved the characters, how they were so expressive. And yeah, that was my first ever comic that I read.
That's a classic for sure. A lot of creators reference that one. Great when you're growing up, but I'm wondering who or what inspires you to create today?
I'd say many artists. I draw my inspiration from very different media, a lot from comics, obviously, but also from films. I'd say in terms of comics, I love Marjan Satrapi, and I love also Craig Thompson. I also draw inspiration from films. So, for example, I love films from Sofia Coppola. So very intimate, very intimate kind of storylines that I'm interested in.
So we met up recently at the Montreal Comic Arts Festival. I've got to ask you, how was that event for you?
That was amazing. I was shocked by the amount of people. I think we were really lucky that weekend because the weather was beautiful. And also, I think it was a good idea to change the weekend to before the Formula One. So there were actually people walking in the streets of the plateau. It was great for me because it was the first time that I've done a festival of that size, but also specifically for comics. Well, I did one smaller one, a local one for my comic a few months ago, but that one was the first one that I've done in this caliber. And I was so touched by the fact that people would just come to my table and ask to buy my comic and then have it signed and then ask me questions about it. Yeah, it was a very amazing experience. Like the crowd was amazing. Everybody was really passionate about comics, and yeah, it was great.
Yeah, absolutely a great event for sure. And the book that you're talking about is the one that we're talking about today, the award-winning graphic novel Les Pieds d'Isadora, or Isadora's Feet. So congratulations on winning the Bédélys Award for that book. That's tremendous.
Thank you. I was really shocked to actually win the prize. I was even more shocked just to be nominated. But yeah, like it was a good surprise.
Can you talk a little bit about the story? Tell us maybe a little bit about what it's all about.
Yeah, so basically it's a story of a girl named Lale who is a dance student. She has moved to Montreal a couple, like 1 or 2 years ago, and it actually takes place in Montreal, but in the 90s. And basically, Lale dreams of becoming a ballerina, but she's struggling, financially and trying to like have a balance of working, but also like, becoming a ballerina and actually going to class and everything. And at some point, she meets Al, who is a retired jazz musician. And basically, like, they strike a friendship. He's older, but like, they become friends. And he basically starts to help her. He gives her access to like a dance studio so she can start practicing more and, fulfill her dream. But at the same time, she also starts like working in the nightlife industry as a go-go dancer. So there's like a little bit of like ballet, but also like, nightlife, kind of like the more greedy, I guess, side of Montreal during the 90s. And, the village kind of like vibe and with all the craziness going on during that time. So basically, Lale, she's struggling and at the same time she's also like confronting some family trauma and doing a lot of personal sacrifices, but also she starts to question her dream of becoming a ballerina. What does it mean? Why is she following that dream? Why is it so important to her? So all these things. Yeah, so if you get the comic, you'll know what happens next. Is she gonna finally like make it as a ballerina or not? And yeah.
What was the inspiration for you to create this story?
My inspiration is kind of weird. Like I always wanted to make a comic about, being an artist. I love Kiki's Delivery Service, for example, that movie from Studio Ghibli. But at the same time, I didn't want to do something specifically about comics because Lale's story is kind of like a reflection of my own story, trying to make it as an artist, trying to make it as an illustrator, specifically in comics and that world specifically. I remember I was traveling in Hungary and I walked by a gallery and I saw these ballet flats being cut. It wasn't an art installation, but they were cut by kind of like a knife or something like that. And I thought the image was very like strong. And I don't know, I just had this inspiration and I started thinking about, oh, what is about dance that makes it so like a very interesting world, But at the same time, I found that there were a lot of parallel between being a dancer and being an artist because it's a very physically demanding job. Obviously, probably more than being an illustrator, but still, like as artists, we're always sitting down. We get like many issues with our bodies. It's still very demanding. And the same way for ballet dancers. I mean, they are constantly having their foot hurt and, getting injuries because it's a very physically hard and demanding a lot of endurance from the body. And I thought like, oh, why do we torture our mind and why do we torture our bodies in order to be beautiful and or create beauty? Yeah, that was kind of like the main question I had. And for me, the best way was to make a comic because I love comics.
Because the central character is a dancer, did you have to do any research to get the role down and the scenery and the vibe of the book?
Yes, I did a lot of research, but honestly, it was really a lot of documentary research. I watched movies about ballet. I watched some documentaries about dance, contemporary dance, ballet, but I didn't really talk to specifically to ballet dancers. I wish I had the time to do that, but that was definitely more superficial research. But still, I think I had the gist more or less.
I wonder if we could switch gears a wee bit and talk about the tools you used to create your book. Maybe you could walk me through your workflow as well.
Oh, the tools I used. So the tools that I used mostly were all on Procreate. I work a lot on my iPad for my full-time job because I'm a storyboard artist mostly. But for this one, since I had to do that to work on this project part-time, for me, it was really easy to just do it on Procreate. And then basically, when I started working on the script at the same time, because I'm a very visual person, at the same time, I was also like trying to find archival photos, trying to like build some kind of mood board for my comic because I really wanted a specific aesthetic to come through. I hope one day that I get to become an art director or something like that. So for me, it was kind of like a very good exercise, building a mood board, trying to like find a aesthetic direction for my comic because I wanted the story to be very specific, but I wanted the aesthetics and the look of it to fit in with the narration of my story. So I started with the script, mood board, and then when those were done, I started drawing some sketches just to have some kind of feel of the different characters and also like the locations. For me, location is very important when I work on a comic book. So I sketched a lot of like Montreal, during the 90s, what would it look like with the cars and the old bus and the old metro and things like that. And then once those things were done, it took me almost a year. Then I started actually illustrating the different pages. That took me another year. So it was 2 years in the making, but I was doing that part-time. Maybe if I was able to work on that full-time, I would have done this like maybe in 6 to 12 months. I don't know. But yeah, that was my process.
I was reading your bio and it says that you're a true multimedia artist with experience in video production, advertising, and immersive digital studio work. Do you have a medium preference for expressing yourself? Is it comic books or is it something else?
I'd say it's a lot of different things. Like for me, it's really illustration in general. So for me, any type of illustration that would convey a story. So storyboarding specifically in different fields, it could be like for an ad campaign, or it could be for an immersive event. For example, I did one for Twice, the K-pop band that came in Montreal actually a couple months ago. But also like it's really illustration in general. So for me, comic is just a very natural way of conveying a story through illustration.
At the top, I mentioned that we met up at the Montreal Comic Arts Festival. So I was wondering, do you have any other plans to attend events later this year to promote your book?
Yes, there's going to be a local comic book fair that's going to take place in September. I haven't been accepted yet, but hopefully, if I get to attend that one, that would be great. It's a very new comic book art, fair. It's called Gouttière and Aigri-Bouilly. I know the girls who organize this event, and they're simply lovely. And a lot of the people who participate are small artists like me, brand new authors, and things like that. So that's going to be the next art comic book fair that I'm going to attend this year. And then I guess next year I'm going to attend the MCAF again. So that's something I'm really looking forward to. Hopefully, I get something new too, but we'll see.
We'll see for sure. Yeah, something to look forward to. I was reading your social media. There was a post that you made about quitting Etsy, and you gave your reasons for doing that. And that platform has been one avenue for artists to sell their work. I'm going to ask you a little bit more about that, like why you quit and what other avenues do you have that perhaps other creators might take advantage of?
Yeah, it's been a rocky situation with Etsy in the past couple years. Well, actually, since the beginning, because I've been on there for almost 5 years, and the first 2 years I did no sale at all. Like it was really hard for me to get my listings appear in the search results. So when people go on Etsy and they would like search for whatever, like an art print for travel, I would be at the bottom lists, and they were like thousands and thousands of pages. So it was already very competitive, and that was before AI. And then when I starting making sales, that was because, I had like a specific product that was very popular. It was a Montrealer posters. These were really popular, so that was great. So I was like, oh, I guess Etsy's not that bad. I'm getting some sales. I mean, it's not big, but it's great. But then I started having issues with people actually stealing my art and then selling it. So they would sell it on Etsy or on Temu, and I would have to file copyright claims and things like that. So that was kind of like annoying. And then AI art appeared on Etsy, and I would see like so many shops making a huge amount of sales, getting like a lot of good reviews on Etsy from people who I guess they don't necessarily know that this art is AI, or maybe they don't care, I don't know. But it made it even more difficult for me because the competition was just getting out of hand. All of my listings, it would just like get further and further down in the algorithm for the search results. And then there was another thing too, like Etsy, they have some kind of program where you become a star seller if you reach certain, I guess, goals. So if you get a certain amount of rating, like positive ratings, and if you respond to messages really fast, and if you have very good shipping times, like if you're able to ship your items on time every time and you don't have any delays and things like that, then you get like this little badge on your shop, and that also makes your listings appear on top the search results. But for me it was really hard because I'm like a small business, only me running this business, and I started like competing against not people like me, but unnamed corporations that were like based in Bulgaria or China or whatever. So it was like, what am I competing against? So Etsy is really not the same as it used to be. And I think it's been like that for probably 10 years, but I think it's just getting worse and worse. And I'd say for anyone, like for artists who approach me and they're like, oh, I'm thinking about going on Etsy and things like that, I actually recommend them either like having their own website and maybe getting some kind of audience through social media and then funneling their sales through their website, or using different kind of marketplaces. For me, I think it's much better to go to art fairs, local art fairs, and actually meeting your customers in person. And also I find it's definitely more beneficial in terms of, financially, it's more beneficial than Etsy, because Etsy, you have to pay for getting your listings up on your shop, and also they charge like crazy amount of fees for every sale you make. It's kind of ridiculous. So it's really not for smaller creatives anymore.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and sorry you had to go through it, but obviously you're looking towards better things in the future. And speaking of the future, we've been talking about Les Pieds d'Isadora, but can you talk about your next project? Is there something on your drawing board that you can talk about?
Yes, I'm actually working on a new graphic novel. I don't want to tell too much, but I've been very interested in old Arabic and Persian poetry and all these aesthetic of Golden Age Islamic art, but also like medieval Ottoman artistry. So I'm working on a comic book that's kind of like inspired by the 1001 Nights. Yeah, it's going to be something interesting because there's going to be some kind of modern twist in it. Of course, it's a very personal story. It's going to be based on my childhood growing up in Canada. I can't wait to share it with the world, but yeah, that's all I can say so far.
You don't want to say too much, but where do you recommend that people go online to find out about your current and your future projects?
Yeah, I think the best way would be to follow me on Instagram, my main account, which is Karima Lacroix. That's basically where I put every new project I'm working on.
Very good. Well, Karima, those are all the questions I have for you, but I'm wondering, is there something I didn't ask that you'd like to get across in this interview?
I'd say maybe just a little pep talk that I can give, because I guess a lot of people who listen to your podcast are aspiring authors, or maybe they started working on something. I'd say if you have an idea, just go for it. Like for me, it was really hard with my first graphic novel, Isadora, to really be motivated and actually finish it. And the reason why is because I was just telling myself, well, nobody's going to read it. Nobody wants to read my story. Why would I spend this much time for nothing if nobody's going to read it? And it doesn't matter. Just do it anyway. And I'm so glad I actually listened to my instinct and actually finished it. So if you have a script, if you're working on a project and you're hesitating or you're questioning yourself, you're procrastinating, don't listen to the negative feedback in your head. Just go for it and get it out there and share it with the world, because we need more human art. We need more human voices in storytelling.
Thanks to Karima for the chat. You can discover more about Karima Lacroix online at karimalacroix.com and on Instagram at Karima Lacroix. And thank you for tuning in to the True North Country Comics podcast. I invite you to visit the truenorthcountrycomics.com website to listen to even more conversations with creators about making comic books and graphic novels. You can follow along True North Country Comics on most social media platforms, and you're encouraged to send any and all feedback to John at truenorthcountrycomics.com. Thanks for tuning in, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2026.